Well, a brutal loss for the Tigers in the series finale against the Rockies. We'll talk about that, as well as preview what still should be a huge weekend in Detroit. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, September 13th, Friday the 13th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. Welcome in, welcome all, everybody. Happy Friday. Hopefully we can send you off into the weekend here with a good show, get you prepped for, again, what still should be a really fun, exciting, and important weekend at Comerica Park. But first, we have to discuss this brutal loss, 4-2 at the hands of the Colorado Rockies. Very, very frustrating loss. They weren't going to win out, right? But this is against a really bad team when you have your soon-to-be Cy Young winner on the mound. That was just a brutal showing, given the situation, given the scenario. Maybe it's my fault. I said that they should sweep. Maybe that's on me. I believe in baseball jinxes as is, so maybe I should have kept that to myself. But this was really just a kick in the stomach type of loss, truly. I mean, we can get right into it. What went wrong? We're going to actually work backwards here. Okay, we're going to start with the ninth inning and then work backward, because I think the ninth inning of this baseball game was genuinely one of the lousiest and worst performances I've seen from this team in quite some time. This made me think it was still like June when this team was playing like this all the time and losing games left and right. Look, we can just go chronologically. Like every single play, every single batter that came up, something ridiculous happened. So you have Foley grooving a sinker, right? Works the count. There's nobody on base. Grooves one. Just throws a sinker right over the heart of the plate, slap to right field. There's a man on base. Dylan Dingler, passed ball. They were talking about on the TV broadcast, if you bunt there, sacrifice the out, get a runner in scoring position. Don't worry, one of the worst teams in baseball. We'll just do it for you. Okay, so that was awful. Then there's a blooper to right field. The hitter was fooled on the pitch. He got beat. That was a good and well-executed pitch by Foley. I have zero issue with that. It's just Jason Foley can't get swings and misses. I do have an issue with that, and I will continue to. And so it gets blooped to right field. Then Matt Vierling completely botches the play. It bounces once. I'm assuming there was a crazy spin on it. I'm not saying, he's a terrible defender and that's going to happen all the time, but golly, was that pretty darn costly. Doesn't even get a hand on it. He's so far away from the ball. Then, next hitter, runner advances from second to third on a ground ball. And then, honestly, I think the thing that upset me the most, that I don't think very many other people are going to talk about, was the decision to throw a slider to Jake Cave. You're going to throw a righty-lefty slider, rather, not changeup. You're going to throw a righty-lefty slider in that situation with a man on third and they're trying to get a fly ball? And it ultimately didn't even matter. They couldn't score one run in the ninth inning, and all it was a sac fly, right? It was a fly out. All he wanted was a fly out. Jason Foley's slider is not that good. It's the opposite platoon, and I can't imagine he was trying to go backdoor with it. If he was, then we need to have a serious conversation about who's calling pitches, because that was egregious. I think he was trying to get it low and in, which is a little bit more justifiable, but it was executed poorly because it's not that good of a pitch, and he's a sinker ball thrower. But that kind of transitions into Foley as a whole, which is like that is what you have to deal with when you have a high leverage reliever that can't get swings and misses. The only pitch in his repertoire that can even get some swing and miss sometimes is the slider. So they have to throw it against the opposite platoon when he's looking for a fly ball pitch. So as frustrated as I am, and for as much as I think it's absurd to throw that there, because in my eyes, I would much rather just bring the infield in, get a ground ball, because you know if he throws the sinker, you can get a ground ball and take your chances on being able to get the guy at home. But I also, in the same breath, when you have a pitcher that has Foley's repertoire, I know we spent a lot of time on this. I'll move on, I promise. But this is really just me on my soapbox here. Like, I understand, though, at the same time, I think it's egregious, but I also know that it's the only pitch that possibly could have gotten a swing and miss there. He wasn't going to get a whiff on a sinker to a lefty. Poor execution, brutal all around. Yeah, that pitch pissed me off more than anything else that happened. And that's really saying something, because pretty much everything that happened in the ninth inning upset me. We haven't even gotten to the bottom of the ninth, which was then Riley Greene fly out. Colt Keith draws a walk. Matt Vierling, one of the worst at-bats we've seen from a Tigers hitter in recent memory, given the situation. Torkelson gets lucky. The shortstop just can't field the ball. And then Zach McKinstry, who, bless him. Like, very fun story for him to turn it around after everybody kind of wrote him off and wanted him off the team. All of that being said, still, if I was to rank all of the hitters on this team in order of how much I wanted them up in that situation, man on first and third, 2 outs, down 2, McKinstry would be close to last. Just a dreadful ninth inning. Dreadful. And then you talk about all the runs you gave up throughout the entire game. We can move on from the one inning. I can finally, again, kind of get off my soapbox there. Like, I just talked about 2 that were kind of ridiculous. One was a home run on a hanging curveball from Skubal early in the ball game. The other was an infield single from Charlie Blackmon, where Colt Keith makes a great play range-wise to go to his right, get the ball, just doesn't have the arm strength to get Charlie Blackmon out. Like, this was such a frustrating game because all but one of those runs were avoidable. But it was even more frustrating because of the offense. Everything I just said, as frustrated as I am with everything I just laid out to you, at the end of the day, this offense scored 2 runs and had 4 hits against one of the worst pitching staffs in the entire game of baseball. And that is the reason they lost this game. Putrid offensive performance. Let's break that down a little bit more. We will do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Tonal. Even the most dedicated gym goers can struggle with consistency. The commute, waiting for weights, other people's sweat, it makes skipping a workout very tempting. With Tonal, you can choose from thousands of workouts and train a way and you actually enjoy, and that's at home. Tonal is the world's smartest and most effective strength training system that helps you get stronger. It's powered by AI, and it learns every rep you take more and more, so you can deliver workouts personalized just for you. It's like having a personal trainer at home, as Tonal will optimize every workout just for you. Unlike traditional gym equipment, Tonal uses adaptive digital weight to advance your training techniques. From professional athletes all the way to the mom of 3, Tonal is trusted by thousands who have become their strongest. Right now, Tonal is offering listeners $200 off of your Tonal purchase with promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Tonal.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a $200 off your purchase. That's Tonal.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB, all one word, for $200 off. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back on Monday recapping this very important Baltimore series that we will preview at the end of the show. After you make us your first listen, make Locked On MLB with Sully your second listen, getting you prepped for those playoffs. The Tigers still in the playoff picture. Again, make him your second listen over at Locked On MLB. Get it on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also had a listener point out that I have not talked and plugged Jake Rietma's show very often lately. Was really big on plugging it a lot when it first started, and then very wrongfully on my end have not talked about it as much. Jake does the Locked On Tigers postcast. You see that if you listen on audio, it's on the feed. Also on YouTube, Locked On Detroit Sports. Great show. Immediately following, just immediate post-game reaction, kind of talking about the ins and outs of the game that just happened itself. Here we're obviously a little bit more big picture, still talking about the game though, obviously. So great show. We'll be with you through weekends and whatnot after every single game. So if you're looking for an immediate reaction there, definitely go check out Jake's show. Great guy, very talented as well. So talking about what went wrong in this 4-2 loss to the Colorado Rockies, talked about the pitching. We talked about the ninth inning. The offense is where we left off there before the break. Just a really putrid performance. The thing that bothered me the most about the offense was I was yelling at my TV at one point, for the love of everything, please swing at the first pitch once. Go rewatch the first 4 innings. It was mind-boggling how many first pitch fastballs were over the heart of the plate that the Tigers just stood there like a house on the side of the road. I was stunned. I was completely befuddled. And it was the entire lineup. It was everybody. Everybody just stood there and watched these fastballs over the heart of the plate, and it just drove me absolutely up a wall. So, and that's something we talked about earlier in the year, right? Earlier in the year, we talked about how the Tigers were one of the, if you were to rank every single team by how often they swung at the first pitch, the Tigers were toward the very bottom of that. They were last for a very large portion of the season. And while they got a little bit better, they're still very much, bottom 2 or 3 in the league. And this game just reminded me of that, where it's just like the other team just thinks that they can just throw a meatball first pitch and you're gonna be up 0-1. And that's just not how you have an effectively aggressive and productive offense on a consistent basis. So that really drove me nuts. That was absolutely infuriating. The top 4 in your lineup in this ball game, that is Parker Meadows, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Greene, Colt Keith, 4 guys who are not only supposed to be the 4 best hitters in your lineup this year, but also 4 of the biggest, long-term pieces that you have, arguably the 4 biggest on offense. Obviously, Skubal is probably the biggest pitching-wise, but like offensively, the 4 biggest assets and most important assets that you have to build around offensively going forward. And they had 1 total hit between the 4 of them in this ballgame. One total hit. Now the team only had 4, so I guess that's a quarter of your production there. But that's just not going to cut it against, again, a really rough Rockies pitching staff. Ryan Feltner, no disrespect, all the credit in the world, living out my dream job, certainly playing Major League Baseball there. He's got a career ERA of about 5.5 and does not strike people out. In this ball game, he held the Tigers to 2 runs and had 6 strikeouts through 5 2/3. You got absolutely diced by a guy you shouldn't have. You wasted your ace and your future Cy Young winner here. Just the lack of aggressiveness. And it got a little bit better as the game went along, to be fair to them. But man, that first half, the first half of that ball game was just, again, infuriating. What went right in this ball game? This was not all doom and gloom. The Tigers did have a chance to win this ball game late. This was a tie game late, and the Tigers just couldn't take advantage and get over that hump. In terms of what went right, Sean Gunther continues to impress, has a 0.82 ERA now. And I think the pitch that impressed me the most was that slider to lefties. I don't know how a single lefty hits that. And I've said that like 3 or 4 times since he's been called up, but he's been incredible. Yeah, sub 1 ERA. I think that was his 10th appearance so far of the year. He's looked really, really good and seems to be a legitimate weapon against lefties at a minimum, which has value, right? So good on him. Good on the Tigers for that find as well. And then Spencer Torkelson, one of the only highlights on the offensive side of the ball on a very quiet day, as I put in the show sheet here, offensive offense. Spencer Torkelson had a great day at the plate. 2 for 3 with a walk, also drove in both of the RBIs, the only 2 RBIs that the Tigers would score on the day. And the swing he put together on that, in that at-bat was absolutely beautiful. Worked the count, adjusted mid-pitch, right? Notice was sitting, I'm assuming, slider low and away, because that's where he keeps getting bullied because he can't hit him. And noticed that pitch was not going to make it all the way there, that it was a little bit of a hanger, and brought the hands way in, way in. And that was a worked, again, a worked count, a worked at bat, was fouling some balls off and pulled the hands in, stroked it down the left field line. It barely stays fair. Absolute beautiful piece of hitting from Torkelson there. And yeah, was really the only hitter in the lineup today that was consistently a threat at the plate. So yeah, that's really it for the offense. And then you have Tarik Skubal, who continues to be phenomenal. Goes 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, 6 strikeouts. Obviously, the 1 earned run was the solo shot to Beck. Man, it's crazy that he's already in the majors to me. Beck. I remember when he was in college, Jordan Beck was a huge prospect at Tennessee. A huge prospect. Like, people thought, going into that season that he was going to be a top 10 pick. And then he just didn't have as good of a draft year as people expected. Played some second base at one point. Now he's playing like corner outfield. There was kind of some questions defensively. And he fell to the Rockies, I want to say, in like the comp rounds. I don't think he ended up even being a first round pick, but I think he got taken in one of the compensatory rounds. Goodness. And man, he's hitting good on him. Nice piece of hitting there, but he's hitting 201 with a 555 OPS. Like, I just hasn't really worked out. Now, we're very early in the dude's career. I'm not trying to write him off or anything yet, especially, if he's only 23. If he can find some luck in Coors, that can at least boost the numbers there at a minimum. But I just remember how good, people thought he was going to be going into that draft year at Tennessee. And he wasn't bad by any stretch, but certainly didn't live up to all of it. Had some injury stuff to deal with as well. So wishing him the best, honestly. Shout out to Jordan Beck there. Okay, so Tarik Skubal was great, though. Sorry, ADHD tangent there. His fastball in this outing was really well located glove side. So if you're looking at the plate, the right half of the plate, glove side, yeah, I just explained that, was located really well glove side. So inside to righties, he was kind of pinpoint there. But arm side, he was spraying it all over the place. Could not consistently hit that up and away to righties or up and into lefties. Did hit it a couple of times and did just blow a couple of fastballs by guys because he has the ability to do that. But definitely was something that was a little bit inconsistent in this outing. But the biggest inconsistency was the changeup. I mean, my goodness, he was all over the place with the changeup today. That's probably been his best pitch. His fastball probably is still his best pitch, but his changeup has easily been his best secondary pitch this season. It's kind of revolutionized him as a pitcher. It's pretty brutal in this ball game, and not because the pitch didn't move as much or anything. The stuff is still fine. It always will be with Skubal, but just didn't have any command of it whatsoever. Was spiking it into the ground at one point there in like the second or third inning, just completely bailed on it. Started throwing sliders rather, but went back to it at again and again and again, and did get, I think, one swing and miss on it. Got a couple of called strikes, but as a whole, just didn't really have it. There was also no chance he was coming out of the ball game on an injury to his non-throwing hand. I could have predicted that one from about a million miles away. So yeah, like it wasn't his best stuff. I think the thing that's most fascinating about him is this was probably like his C-level stuff, and yet it was still 6 innings of almost shutout baseball. And that's just a testament to how incredible Tarik Skubal is. I think the point I'll leave this conversation with is like, because this game was close, does that justify using him? I know a lot of people wanted to push him back a day so that he could pitch against Baltimore. Like, you lost, so obviously in hindsight, which is not fair to use for these arguments, but if we are to, that would tell you you don't want to burn your best pitcher in a game you're going to lose at anyways. I totally understand that. But if we don't just go completely results oriented, because that's impossible to predict, like, it was a close game, and you want a chance to win. And ultimately, Tarik Skubal gives you the best chance to do that when he's on the mound more than anybody else on the team. So I don't know. It's very, very frustrating to use him in a loss against the Rockies when you have Baltimore on deck. I completely understand, and I feel the same way. But I don't know. I don't know if people's stance changed or were reinforced based on the outcome. Just really sucks that it was in a losing effort because the offense and the defense just decided they wanted to take a day off. Really frustrating stuff. Okay, let's talk stuff. Okay, frustrating stuff. We'll do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. One Caleb Williams passing yard can also get you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. That's 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because when it's gone, it is gone rather, when September ends. Wake me up when September ends. You can now also win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. It is so fun. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you can get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So let's talk stuff. Tarik Skubal, x-rays came back negative. That's a great sign. He says he should be fine. I tend to believe him. Just a really hard comebacker on his non-pitching hand. I'm not too terribly worried about it. I think that's, worst case scenario, something he can maybe deal with in the offseason, but I think he'll probably, all steam ahead, I'd imagine. Greene with a fantastic catch in this ball game. Ultimately did not matter, but a really, really fantastic catch. It's just everything he does just terrifies me. Like, he had the one play where, like, he caught it and then couldn't stop himself and went into the crowd. And then he had this play. Like, everything, he just, like, flails around. Like, everything he does just terrifies me. But incredible plays, no less, that you're not going to tell him not to make, right? You're in the thick of a wild card race here. You're not going to be like, hey, take it easy. No, it's just, I'm going to, the blood pressure is going to get a little bit higher in those moments, though. Injury updates. Wenceel Perez is back. He took an AB in this game, unfortunately struck out to a reliever for the Rockies that was pumping 100, which is just kind of the norm these days out of bullpens across baseball. But Wenceel Perez is back and healthy. Should get a start or two this weekend, I would imagine. Ryan Kreidler sent back down to AAA to make room for Wenceel Perez. Agree with the move. I don't think Kreidler offers too terribly much at this point in the season, especially with Young up, and that will probably mean that Vierling will play a lot more third base down the stretch when Jace Young isn't. But good to see Wenceel Perez back. Took some really good ABs for this team in the middle of the summer when not very many people were taking really good ABs. So that is a player you definitely want, especially over Ryan Kreidler here down the stretch in the middle of a playoff hunt. There's also a chance that Reese Olson could be back this weekend. There's some people that are speculating Sunday. We'll see what happens. Cater Montero is currently scheduled to start on Sunday. So if he's back by the by Sunday, they probably wouldn't add him back to the roster again unless they're going to use him as a reliever until after the weekend. But we'll see. He's supposed to be throwing for the team here at the end of the week. Would love to get a notification that Reese Olson was going to be back and would be with this team again. Whether it's, I said this yesterday, I don't care whether it's as a starter or a reliever. Just put him on the roster in the last 2.5 weeks of the season here, and I will be a happy camper. That is a very, very valuable asset for this team in these very meaningful games. So we're going to end by talking about kind of a positive spin on all this. Obviously, very, very frustrating loss. That's understandable. I'm very frustrated too, clearly. The positive spin and the positive outlook on this game is, at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning of the show, they weren't going to win out. And the teams ahead of Detroit in the standings haven't been playing fantastic baseball. Obviously, the Twins took care of business against the Twins, but like they were losing some games before that. That's why the Tigers were able to make up ground. The Royals have been pretty spotty lately, etc. Like they're not going to win out either, is my point. And if you walk away from this Baltimore, Kansas City, Baltimore next 3 series with 3 series wins, you are certainly going to be in the mix and you're going to be right there. And I think we would have been saying that anyway, even if they did lose or did win rather this ball game against the Rockies. You probably still have to go into those series going, all right, we need a series win here. So this is a very frustrating loss because you could have and probably should have won. But the race isn't just completely dead because of this loss either. Everything is still in front of you, as Aaron Boone loves to say in New York. Everything is still in front of you. And you were always going to have to beat some pretty darn good teams to get within reach anyways. So you got to try and start doing that this weekend. This is, put all your chips in one basket here. You got to go all out these next 9 games. The Tigers are 3.5 out with 15 games to play, and you don't own the tiebreaker against the Twins or the Royals. Is it likely? Probably not. Been saying that this whole time. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but just to be a realist. Not likely. But it's also not impossible. You just have to beat good teams, which, again, you were going to have to do anyways, even if you beat the Rockies here. Now, if you lay an egg this weekend, then it probably is over. But you play the Orioles this weekend. You have TBD for the Tigers against Zach Eflin, TBD versus Corbin Burns, and Kader Montero against Cade Povich on Sunday. Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun. Let's take 2 of 3. Let's take 2 of 3, make the rest of September matter, have a fun weekend. Hopefully the Twins can lose some games to the Cincinnati Reds here and fill out Comerica Park, man. It should be a fine weekend weather-wise. Let's have some fun. Let's win some ball games. Why not us? Why not? This is the most important weekend series at Comerica Park since when? That's an open-ended question. I genuinely don't know. The last genuinely important series they played prior to this season, as far as standings went, was the final series in 2016 against the Braves. I remember watching that in my freshman year college dorm room, and just brutal. I know Jordan Zimmerman pitched in that series, and the Braves were awful. This is like when they had Freddie Freeman, and then your local high school team was everybody else. They were dreadful, and the Tigers lost 2 of 3 and missed the playoffs, I think, by a game, maybe 2. But it was like if they had swept, they would have been tied or right there in the mix. But that was on the road. That was in Atlanta. So I'm wondering when the last super important series, probably right before that, I guess. But fun times. Don't lay an egg. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to that everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back on Monday. Jake Rietma will be here throughout the weekend, I think. But we'll be back on Monday. Appreciate you all. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all then. Go Tigers.